In the former Pirates Cove of Clearwater on Florida's Gulf Coast, any visitor quickly realizes who is fighting for power today. Scientologists dominate the downtown area. In Clearwater, they have come one step closer to their dream of having their own Scientology city. Out of 100,000 inhabitants, about 6,000 belong to the sect. Additionally, Scientologists from around the world are making their pilgrimage to a former luxury hotel, where they pay thousands of dollars for courses that promise higher degrees of initiation. The Fort Harrison is their religious center. Anyone who approaches it is watched. The sect's security service follows our camera team everywhere. Scientology's security men report every enemy movement to command headquarters. And this morning, the security guards would be even more nervous than usual if they knew who was headed straight for Clearwater. The man whom the Scientology leadership perhaps fears the most, Bob Minton, a multimillionaire banker who is waging a war against the sect. The Crusader is tense.
A little bit, yes. It's a little bit Lion's Den type thing. There are a lot of ex-Scientologists who have said to me, whatever you do, don't go in the Fort Harrison Hotel. Some incident will be staged. You'll be accused of attacking someone from the Church of Scientology. Be careful, because they're out to get you. You're not paranoid. They are, in fact, out to get you.
Bob Minton is bringing the battle to Clearwater, the heart of Scientology, because he believes in democracy American style. Don't wait for the government to act. Do it yourself. Minton has never been a member of the sect. The 51-year-old computer buff launched his crusade when Scientologists tried to silence critics on the internet.
You can see that they've mobilized a lot of resources, human resources, in order to keep an eye on us, so they obviously are somewhat concerned by it.
The spokesman for Scientology in Clearwater, Brian Anderson, immediately launches a counterattack.
Bob Minton spending money to fuel attacks against the church would be like a Nazi funding money to some anti-Jewish organization. I mean, to stir up trouble and to give, when you give money to somebody to attack a minority religion, then that's an evil.
Bob Minton believes the evil is on the other side of the street.
There were an awful lot of people who had an incredible amount of pain inflicted on their lives by having been involved in this organization, the Church of Scientology. And one of the terrible things about their involvement is that once they were out and tried to speak out against the church really tried to destroy these people, either through driving them into financial ruin or excessive litigation. I wanted to try to level the playing field so these people had a chance to fight back.
And Bob Minton has the funds to do it.
How much of your own money have you spent so far in this war?
So far, $1.4 million.
1.4?
Yes, and I've got another couple of $100,000 that I've committed. If necessary, I'll do more.
2,500 miles from Clearwater, Bob Minton bought a secluded house on this island for two former members of Scientology. Their old neighborhood was besieged by pro-Scientology demonstrators. A $300,000 refuge.
Yeah, and then you went and got the kitty. Yeah.
Even here, Stacy Young no longer feels safe. Recently, neighbors received anonymous warnings. The cats kept in Young's kennels are carriers of infectious diseases.
It got so bad finally that one night 2 women showed up at our door from the mental health department to commit me because they had received anonymous calls that I was crazy and that I was collecting diseased cats, a sure sign of insanity. And they were very surprised when they actually met me and had a chance to talk to me, and I explained to them what was actually going on with the Scientologists, what they were trying to do. Bob Minton called that he would like to help us. He saved our life, really. I mean, he came to our rescue at a time in our life when we really desperately needed help.
Dianetics.
Commercials airing across the country sell Scientology as a religious philosophy. The sect's expensive courses promise to solve life's problems, to boost confidence, and to create a better world. In the U.S., stars like John Travolta openly declare themselves to be followers of Scientology and help promote the product.
So many people have this whole thing wrong, right? But this book, finally, after all these years, explains everything. And it answers questions both positive and negative. It just sets the record straight. And I've been looking for this book personally for a long time.
Scientology was conceived by science fiction writer Ron Hubbard.
Scientology is for an able guy like you.
The late author created its doctrine by taking elements of traditional religions and generously mixing them with psychoanalysis and science fiction.
That's the man that should be helped. That's the man you should help out, because that fellow is having a hard time.
German courts have ruled the sect seeks primarily to make money. But in the U.S., Scientology is recognized as a religion. This is why Scientologist Sabine Haag moved to Clearwater with her 4 children from a village near Stuttgart. We are not permitted to film a Scientology church service, but we are granted an interview in the administrative center.
Ich habe in einem kleinen Dorf gewohnt mit ungefähr 1500 Einwohnern.
I used to live in a village of 1,500 inhabitants. The people used to jump out of my way left and right as if I had leprosy, because it was known that I was a Scientologist. My children were beaten up on the way home from school every single day. They had no friends.
Meine Kinder hatten keine Freunde mehr. Wir haben unsere Sonntagsgottesdienste hier.
We have our Sunday services here. We have weddings. When someone dies, we have counseling. We have baptisms. We have everything a normal church has, only we enjoy it more.
Eine normale Kirche hat. Nur wir haben viel mehr Freude daran.
The 45-year-old Ron Hubbard devotee professes not to know that former members are harassed by her church.
Also ich weiß hundertprozentig, dass wenn Sie hier aus der Kirche raus möchten,
I know with absolute certainty that if you want to leave the church, nobody will prevent you from doing so.
wir werden gelernt,
Scientology teaches you to be free, and freedom means self-determination. It would be completely against the teachings if someone would prevent you from leaving.
Es wäre total im Gegensatz zu der Lehre. Ja, wenn jemand sie dann halten würde.
But that is, in fact, what happened in the Fort Harrison Hotel, according to reports by former Scientologists. And this is why Bob Minton is demonstrating in front of the so-called religious headquarters. After talking to former sect members from around the country, Minton is convinced.
And there's a very long list of cult victims from Scientology who have been harmed immeasurably during their stay at this hotel.
One was a 36-year-old woman who suffered a slow death here at the Fort Harrison Hotel. Over a 2-year period, Lisa McPherson spent $97,000, almost half her salary, on courses taught by the sect. A year later, in 1995, during a special ceremony, she reached what is known in the church as the clear status, which promises inner peace and happiness. Just 2 months later, Lisa had a minor car accident, and after an ambulance arrived, she suddenly ran down the road, stripped off her clothes, and said, "I need help." Paramedics took her to the hospital for observation. Several Scientologists suddenly appeared and persuaded her to return to the Fort Harrison. What happened then is still unclear, but the Scientologists who were assigned to watch Lisa noted down all the details while her condition rapidly deteriorated. Tried to feed her again, but wouldn't take any food. Needs 2 liters fluid when awake. She has scratches and abrasions all over her body. After 17 days, the Scientologists finally decided to take Lisa to a hospital, but the driver bypassed the closest hospital and didn't even stop at the next one or the one after that either. Instead, the Scientologists drove for 45 minutes to Newport Richey Hospital, where the emergency room doctor was a Scientologist. Too late for Lisa McPherson. She was dead on arrival, emaciated and almost completely dehydrated. The state attorney in Clearwater will soon decide whether or not to prosecute the Scientologists. The Florida medical examiner conducted an autopsy and noted hematomas and skin lesions that looked like insect bites. The report stated she died from a blood clot, brought on by prolonged bed confinement and severe dehydration.
This was Lisa and Halloween.
Lisa's aunt, Del Liebreich, is the next of kin. She is suing Scientology for $80 million in damages. It's not about money, she says. She just wants to get a judgment against the people who, in her opinion, are responsible for Lisa McPherson's death.
I think it's horrible. It's just awful that anybody's allowed, how they can sit and watch a human being, you know, die like that. No doubt. They got her no help. They watched her die.
On the second anniversary of Lisa's death, Scientology critics commemorated the tragedy with a candlelight vigil in front of the Fort Harrison. Bob Minton is among them. Some 3,000 Scientologists surrounded the demonstrators and accused the police chief of Clearwater of orchestrating a witch hunt against the church. Scientology attorney Sandy Weinberg disputes the conclusions reached by the medical examiner.
Due to bed rest and severe dehydration.
That's what the medical examiner who issued the report said. Now what now? Well, as it turned out, she is wrong, and she is very biased and very prejudiced.
So, Mr. Weinberg, you're saying that the samples were tainted.
Those results are wrong, and that they do not match it, and that therefore this woman, this pulmonary embolism did not result from severe dehydration. It resulted, as most pulmonary embolisms, resulted from some sort of a trauma.
Not true, says Ken Dandar, the attorney for Lisa's aunt, paid by Bob Minton.
There is absolutely not 1 ounce of medical proof to that. All of the medical proof is to the contrary, that she suffered a long and torturous death, that she was in a coma for several days. The blood clot was only a partial occlusion, and there was still blood coming through the blood clot. It was the dehydration that killed her. Without water, you're dead. She died because she wouldn't succumb to their rules or their instruction. She wanted out. There's more than 2 people that know that she wanted out, and she refused to give up. And they just let her die.
Few Clearwater citizens dare to criticize the Scientologists.
Clearwater was still a small city when I was a small boy. It was like 35,000 people. Now when you go to downtown Clearwater, you see them walk around the streets. They're like zombies.
Oh, they don't bother me. You know, they're a bunch of young people. They're beautiful people. They really are beautiful young people. I don't know why they want to belong to it, really, because they are such lovely looking people.
Well, I know L. Ron Hubbard wrote a book, and they're I consider a religious cult, but other than that, I don't know a whole lot about them. They own a lot of property in the area.
Most of Clearwater's Scientologists live at this highly guarded complex. Our camera team's arrival is reported immediately, along with the fact that Gabe Caceres is with us. He was the mayor in the 1970s when the sect first moved here.
They build a fence around it. I don't know if it's to keep the public out or to keep the members of Scientology in and control them. But you can't get in or out without clearing the security.
Midway through the interview, the former mayor breaks off when Scientology spokesman Brian Anderson approaches us. With him around, Gabe Caceres does not want to say another word.
So you came just to say hello to us, or?
Here's a German TV station bringing these people into Clearwater.
We didn't bring anybody.
Yes, you did.
No, we did not.
Absolutely.
Oh, we were harassing the church.
Absolutely, with putting these puppets up to just demonstrate in front of the church.
The former mayor prefers to be interviewed a few miles away, in downtown Clearwater.
You want to walk up a little bit?
Why don't we walk?
But when we arrived, Scientologist Brian Anderson was already there waiting for us.
This shows you the...
Scientologist Anderson stays close on our heels, while the former mayor tells us how it all began.
When they first came in, they bought 2 properties under false names. This is truly an occupied city, and now it's being used for brainwashing, and the Scientologists' main claim to helping the Clearwater area is to set up a brainwashing factory, which they have done.
No, that's not true. We're open for tours all the time. I give tours all the time.
Could we walk in with you and get a
Well,
tour?
I would have people only of good heart actually giving a tour. I want to give a tour to only people who are not someone who's trying to harass or bother or upset our citizens. Let me answer that question. We're going to be here forever. We knew at the moment we moved in, we're going to be putting the name of our plaques, the Church of Scientology. It's obviously that people are going to know who we are.
Inside, Brian Anderson proudly shows what the Scientologists are doing for their community. Ron Hubbard's sect wants to be respected by all and reacts aggressively if any skepticism prevails.
Ask any critical questions about Scientology, it becomes somebody who's out to destroy the church.
No, I think that's silly. I have no qualms about criticism. There are critics on the internet. There are critics. Who cares about critics? I mean, even.
Well, you do. You hate them.
Well, what I dislike, and I would say we have a problem with philosophically, are those individuals who are hell-bent on destroying minority religions. When I saw 2 people come out there, and that was their big demonstration, I was laughing. I go, why don't these guys get a life? I mean, is their only life attacking Scientology? Are they kind of bleeding like leeches off the liveliness of the church?
Bob Minton feels the anger of the Scientologists up close and personal. Private investigators intrude on his business partners and family members. His 2 daughters have been followed on their way to school. His wife, Therese, may wish her husband had chosen a different fight.
Well, I try not to let it bother us. I just get on with life. I make sure that the children get on with life, and Bob, within the sanctity of our home, gets on with life. We just don't let it stop us doing anything that we want to do. I don't want their life to be ruled by terror. So we play down that aspect within our home, and we play up we talk about the fact that Bob is standing up for his principles, and that's why we support him.
Well, that's really Bob.
The combative millionaire is clearly proud of his wife.
That we had to work together as a team in this, because I couldn't, fight against the Scientologists and against my wife at the same time. It just wouldn't be practical. So we've been very much teammates in this.
They've leafleted the entire neighborhood. They've picketed outside our house several times. They think that's well within their rights. And we just have to say, fine.
As a precaution, Bob Minton photographs Scientology members who picket his home in Boston's upscale neighborhood, Beacon Hill. As a warning to other Scientology critics, he posts these pictures on the internet. His opponents are relentless. They tracked him to his remote country home, where neighborhood mailboxes were stuffed with leaflets describing Minton as a fanatical religious bigot. And even on a short vacation to the Caribbean, he was trailed. More hateful literature was passed out to tourists on the beach.
Hello.
Hi.
The fight is getting more personal, and Bob Minton carries with him signs of that battle. But he has what former Scientologists and other critics of the sect no longer have: a family that stands by him and ample funds to take on the wealthy Scientology organization. Bob Minton needs all the help he can get if he wants to continue his crusade despite the harassment he's facing.
These people are out to destroy anybody who gets in their way. And yes, I am part of a group of crusaders trying to stop that from happening.
Is there a real chance that you might lose all this because of Scientology?
Well, I think it's a risk worth taking. I don't, however, put the risk of losing everything as being extremely great, but definitely a risk worth taking.
And they're trying to sue you?
Well, they're trying to find reasons to sue me. They haven't succeeded in that yet because I think I've been fairly intelligent and honest and straightforward in my dealings against the Church of Scientology.
Bob Minton is still disturbed by an incident involving a mysterious cat.
Well, my wife came up here from Boston on December 15th and found a dead black and white cat on our doorstep right here in this spot. It was otherwise a healthy-looking cat.
Perhaps a coincidence. But leading Scientologists openly admit that they use private investigators against critics and journalists. One of their investigators recently showed up at the local police station asking questions about Bob Minton.
He said that they had been hired, his company had been hired by the Church of Scientology to investigate Mr. Minton's background and what connection he had with the Church of Scientology or why he was interested in them.
And were you aware of anything that made you suspicious of Bob Minton before?
Always seemed like a gentleman to me, and we've never had any problems with him in town, and I consider him a good citizen in Sandown.
Fort Myers, Florida, just a couple of hours by car from Clearwater. 57-year-old Hannah Whitfield lives here with her husband Jerry. For 20 years, she belonged to the Church of Scientology, and for a long time was the right hand of the sect's founder, Ron Hubbard. But even that did not protect her from their disciplinary system.
Anyone at any level can be chopped, removed from position, demoted, put into what we now call a slave labor camp, the Rehabilitation Project Force.
Hannah Whitfield was captain of the ship on which Ron Hubbard cruised for years. At one time, she was responsible for the entire North American organization. Together with Hubbard's children, Quentin and Diana, she belonged to the inner circle of confidants. And Scientology's founder showed his appreciation. On her birthday, she received a personal letter from Ron Hubbard himself. Hannah Whitfield trusted Hubbard and believed blindly in his teachings.
Full of energy, always full of the great things that he could see come about in the future. And he had a magnetism about him. He drew people to him.
And it worked on you?
And it definitely worked on me.
Hannah Whitfield was 24 when she embraced Scientology. 2 decades later, she realized she had to leave the sect, but she didn't get very far.
I could not have run away. I was held by 2 big men and marched through the building to the area in the garage where the RPF had its office.
Hannah, what was the worst they made you do at the Fort Harrison Hotel?
I think probably running up and down the 12 flights of stairs in the Fort Harrison Hotel in the summer heat, in the Florida summer heat, carrying 5 pounds or more, 10 pounds of building material, lath and plaster in each bucket, having to run up those steps in boiler suits, in heavy boiler suits. I had a friend, a buddy, who was working with, we had to clear each other to get through the RPF, Lynn Froyland. She would not give up her misdeeds to me. She was assigned to the RPF's RPF, which was in the basement, in the boiler room. She was chained to pipes for, I really cannot remember how long.
That's in the Fort Harrison Hotel?
In the Fort Harrison Hotel. I went down there several times pleading with her, Lynn, you can't stay down here. You know, if you stay down here and I can't get you to tell me your misdeeds, I'm going to be put down here, and I don't want to be put down here.
Hannah Whitfield considered suicide, but then she succeeded in breaking away.
The Scientologists have ever felt that they would silence me by harassing myself and my husband and my family to the extent they have. They are completely mistaken. I will never, never give that away. I will never sell my right to speak.
Hannah Whitfield and the other Scientology dropouts hope that Bob Minton continues to spearhead their fight.
How much longer are you willing to keep this fight up, Mr. Minton?
Well, I'm prepared for a fairly long fight, both in terms of financial commitment and personal commitments to it. I believe it's important that people understand what is the nature of a totalitarian organization like the Church of Scientology.
So you're not ready to give up?
I'm not. I'm not.
And if need be, Bob Minton will continue in his crusade against Scientology, all by himself.